In this video, I'd like to talk about the math question of the day for Wednesday, June 7th, 2023. And with this problem, we need to calculate the volume of this cone here. And finding the volume of three-dimensional shapes, in particular cones, is something that's typically taught in a geometry class, though you might also see this at the end of grade school. So at this point, go ahead and pause the video, see if you can work through this on your own. And when you're ready, unpause the video and we can go through this together. Now, assuming that you have attempted this problem, let's start working through it. And to answer this, we essentially just need the formula for the volume of a cone. And we know that it's a cone since we have a flat base here, this circular base, where each point on the base we can draw a line from that point to this tip here. So all of these lines converge at one point, so we know we have a cone. And with a cone, the formula is 1/3 the area of the base multiplied by the height of the cone. And this formula can be a little bit unintuitive. You can prove it using calculus or using other slightly simpler techniques, but typically students will just memorize this. And it would be true, this formula would also be true if we had a pyramid. And both of those shapes are fairly similar. You start with some type of base, and then if you take any point on the edge of the base, you can draw a line to the tip of the figure. And in this case, we have a cone that's rotated on its side, so its height is actually this 7 centimeters here. Let me use a darker color. And for its base, we have this circular figure, which means that we need to find the area of this circle. And we know that the formula for an area of a circle is pi multiplied by the radius of that circle squared. And we can use h for height here. So r, in this case, that's the radius, and we can see that our radius is this 2 centimeters. So we have our height, that's 7 centimeters, and the radius is 2 centimeters. We just need to plug these into our formula. So that we get the volume is 1/3 multiplied by pi multiplied by the radius, which is 2 centimeters, and we square that, multiplied by the height, which is 7 centimeters. And we also need to remember that pi, that's the circle constant, that is exactly equal to 3.14159, and this decimal expansion goes on forever without a pattern. It is irrational. Or we could approximate it as 3.14 roughly. So if we approximate it, then our volume will be approximate, but if we leave in this symbol here for pi, then we'll have an exact answer. So let's start simplifying everything. Our volume is pi divided by 3. We have 2 centimeters times 2 centimeters, which would be 4 square centimeters, and multiplied by 7, 4 times 7 is 28. And we have square centimeters multiplied by centimeters, so we end up with cubic centimeters. Essentially, we have centimeters multiplied by itself 3 times, which is why we write it to the 3rd power, but we just call this cubic centimeters. And we should expect our units to be cubic since we're dealing with volume, since we're dealing with how much space something takes up, how much three-dimensional space. So we can simplify this just a little bit further by writing this as 28 pi divided by 3, since we can't simplify that fraction, and we have, of course, cubic centimeters. Now, like I mentioned, if we leave this symbol of pi, then we have an exact answer. But if we want this as a decimal, we can use our calculator and multiply 28 over 3 by this approximation, 3.14. And when we do so, we get that our volume is approximately 29.3066 repeating, which we can just write as 29.31. and we still have cubic centimeters. So either of these answers work. It just depends what level of approximation you want. If you want the exact answer, then you leave in the symbol for pi.